Hey everyone, my name is Cam Simcoe, and this is my assignment for exercise 2 for construction evaluation. I chose to talk about kind of personal surprises I had with this project in a professional setting, which is 222 Jacob Street, specifically talking about the lobby design. And right now I work as a designer for Jacobs, and this is the project that Jacobs is currently working on. So the project I'm talking about is part of this grand parcel redesign that's being done near the current Lechmere stop outside of Boston and Cambridge. The entire site is called Cambridge Crossing. There's 17 new buildings going up. The one that's dashed in red is the first building that was being done. It's on parcel J/K. We call it 222 Jacob Street now. Jacobs, the firm that I work for, designed the core and shell of this building. It's an office life science building, and it's 622,000 gross square feet. The owner of this entire building project is Divco West, and our relationship with them is we're the architect of record for the project. So this is kind of an initial rendering of what the building was going to look like. This is what it looks like now. It's fully built. We're in the punch listing phase of it. Philips has actually moved in, and this is their new North American headquarters. And as I mentioned before, I'm gonna talk kind of about surprises that happened with this project. This was when I joined Jacobs in 2018 as a designer. This was the first project that I was working on. It's technically in construction administration, but just the nature of how the principle of this project works, it feels like design sometimes. My first experience with this project was the lobby design that was being done. And what I mean by that is the owners hired an outside firm to do the lobby design, but because we're the architects of record, we had to kind of take their work from 100% DD and turn it into construction documents. This was a bunch of unfamiliar things with that. It's an unfamiliar process where we're producing a construction change directive for this lobby, even though it feels like a totally new design, which was an interesting tactic that my firm chose to do. There's unfamiliar technologies. I'd never used Revit before this project, and I'd used Revit a lot for this project. And then the dynamic was unfamiliar. We had to coordinate with a different architecture firm that's based in New York and really try to understand their design, but also kind of hold our initial relationships with the client. So this is the actual lobby. I'll give you a couple overview shots. March and White is the name of the firm that designed it, and these are some initial renderings we got with their schematic design and design development progress drawings. I want to take a second to explain kind of the major players in the project. So the owner is Divco West. They own kind of the entirety of Cambridge Crossing. We are the architects of record for 222 Jacob Street. Our name is also Jacobs, coincidentally. The general contractor for the entire all the parcels is JMA or Moriarty. And kind of this relationship started off as design, bid, build. This was the first project we've worked on together. We're now on 3 projects together, so our relationship has kind of turned into this integrative project delivery method. But for the purposes of this project, consider it design, bid, build. As I mentioned before, March and White were the designers of the actual lobby. They had a direct contract with Divco West. And then some major consultants that are worth mentioning are Lamb, who are the lighting designers. They work with us on all of the core and shell projects, but for the lobby, they had a contract with March and White as well. And then BR Posay is the MEP consultants for the project as well. So some of the problems and challenges that came with this project were that March and White were not geographically close to the project site in any sense. They're from New York. Anytime they came up for meetings, they had to fly up. It was a whole scheduling ordeal. It couldn't just be a quick site meeting that we're used to. The designers in March and White produced design development drawings that we had to turn to construction documents. and our core and shell model was in Revit, and they did all of their drawings in AutoCAD. So that made it very not user-friendly in terms of completing all of the work that needed to be done. This is kind of an example of the drawings they gave us, and we had to remodel everything, make sure it's exactly as their design intentions were, because they're more aesthetic based. As we really got into like the thick of all of their details and stuff, we noticed a bunch of discrepancies. So it's a lot of back and forth and coordination that had to be done. And as someone who had never worked kind of in the architectural role before, this was all new to me. So this was a huge learning curve, full of surprises and experiences I never expected before. In addition, there were, of course, detailing challenges. They had a bunch of intricate wood slat features and stone floor modules and green walls that I'll show you. The nuances of putting together construction documents for this were challenging, as well as coordinating the different consultants. As I showed you before, the different relationships between all the key players, that was the dynamic that we had to figure out. Was Lamb working for us? Was Lamb working for March and White? Going back and forth between our MEP consultants and the designers and making sure the technical and the aesthetic work together. And just to add on top of that, as the lobby design kind of progressed, the owner made changes because of our relationship with them. Things got VE'd out. So it felt like it was an ongoing process. And even though we were in construction administration, it really felt like things were still being designed. So this is kind of an example of stuff that March and White gave us. To the left is just a screenshot of every single CAD drawing of their construction set that they sent us. And my role was to go through all of these and turn them into a Revit version construction documents that we can use. We didn't really know what the best way to do this was. Did we just copy and paste it? Did we redraw it ourselves? As you can see, there was complicated things we needed to address, such as on the right, this wood slat wall with different jut outs and modules and myriads of different sizes. And because we were the architects of record in charge of construction administration for us, it was in our best interest to really get this right in the drawings. Otherwise, it would make it harder for us in the field when we were seeing it being built. So this is kind of an example of how we started to resolve the problems that came up with coordination for this lobby design. It was a lot of red lines back and forth, getting on the phone with March and White. It turned out to be pretty difficult to communicate with them, just being geographically different. And once they kind of passed it over to us from DD to construction documents, it was hard to get a hold of them for questions and such as well. So we kind of had to make our best guesses, interpret their design intent the best that we could, and really try to own the design ourselves. As I mentioned before, because of the relationship we have with the owner, and we're on 3 projects for this site, we're the architect of record for the core and shell, it was really in our best interest to take what March and White designed and fully make it our own. This is an example of kind of how we interpreted their just floor plan, finish plan, and switched it over to our construction documents. And this turned out to be good because it made our duties during construction administration easier. When RFIs or site challenges came into view during construction, we were able to answer them ourselves without really needing to go to March and White, just because we understood the drawings better. This is kind of an example of the lobby being worked in progress. So after we issued this CCD, I was able to see kind of how it was being built. I was able to check it against the drawings and the details that I put together myself. And I would say that this scheme of us taking what may have been a frustrating situation of an outside designer getting this work, the fact that we were able to take their work, be professional, and turn it into our own drawings and be as helpful as possible to the client, I think that really added our relationship to what we had with Divco West, and is an example of why we've been able to get multiple projects with them on the site, because we've shown that we're able to coordinate this work and be good architects at the same time. And this is kind of the lobby design today. I love this side-by-side comparison because it really shows that we were able to take the design intent, some pretty schematic, maybe design development drawings, turn them into workable construction drawings. Things didn't change too much, and we were able to solve a lot of problems that maybe March and White had looked over before. So they say that's kind of like the impacts of the surprises and problems that came across in this process. But in terms of just major lessons learned, it's how to coordinate work with multiple parties. I learned a lot of communication skills on this project. I saw how design directly impacts the construction administration process. I'm still working CA for some of these projects, so I'm constantly seeing how changes I made to the lobby design drawings have affected the lobby design in person. And this has actually been beneficial for my growth personally too, because as you can see, this other building that's dashed in red is a new one that we've been working on. It's broken ground, and we just had the same situation where an outside firm designed the lobby and we had to coordinate the drawings. And this went a lot smoother for me because I kind of knew what worked best for our consultants, what the best way of communications were. So I was able to take some big lessons learned from 222 Jacob Street and apply it to these other projects in such a short time span. Okay, so that's my example of kind of a surprise that came up during construction administration. It's for 222 Jacob Street. I appreciate you listening to my understanding of this project, and I'd love to hear any questions at a later date.